TREU News Center update. I'm Charlie Neal.
In a world where the truth isn't always what it seems, real estate masters step forward to help put the E first in the word true. TREU. Treasure Coast Real Estate Unleashed. And now, here's your real estate masters and their host, Tom Blatania.
All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Friday morning. I almost said Thursday morning. A Friday morning edition of Treasure Coast Real Estate Unleashed, or as we like to say, TREU Radio. Make it easier for you to remember. And we're here with our masters of real estate, Carol Morgan, Scott McAllister, and finally off of vacation, but not joining us until next Friday.
He's still on vacation.
He's still on vacation. Yeah, he's still on vacation. Man, I've never. I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I've never taken a vacation ever that long.
He brought his wife home and then he went back.
Wow.
Time for the boys' night.
I really like him.
We're spending time with his boys.
I like the new opening, by the way.
You like it, yeah.
Although I noticed they didn't stretch your name out as much. You didn't get the whole here's Johnny.
It's all about you guys.
Oh, okay.
It's all about you guys. So I kind of left that up to Cliff, and but it wasn't too difficult to redo the video. If you go to TREUradio.com and watch the video, I took out the other pictures of the past realtors and but it's just getting the timing down and having to go to like Carol's picture and do like 2.36 seconds and then go to what's your name? Scott.
What, bro? Wow. All right.
But it was just
Might as well just take the weekend.
trying to get the timing down to Cliff's voice so that when he's saying it, that the T and the R and everything's popping. It was fun though. It was a lot of fun. So TREUradio.com is the place to go if you'd like to watch us, listen to us. You can go and see any of the archives from the shows that we've done in the past. You can see the realtors that are here with us, the masters that are here with us. And today we have a very special show with a very special guest. And I know this is a topic in South Florida, Chinese drywall, that it has been huge for many, many, many years. And joining us today is, as far as I'm concerned, he is probably the master of Chinese drywall remediation, is Mr. Howard Ursom. Howard, how are you this morning, sir?
I am doing good. Good to hear your voice.
Good morning, Howard.
Well, welcome.
Good morning.
And you actually know some of the people on the air with us here, Howard.
Howard did an inspection for me, yes.
You know Carol Morgan and with Keller Williams and Scott McAllister. Yeah. And I know you try not to admit it, but you do know me.
Oh, yeah, for quite a while now.
Quite a while. We know each other for quite a while. So, it's still out there. It really is, Howard. And tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what got you into looking at this Chinese drywall stuff.
I had it in my own properties, investment properties I had to deal with, and then when the builder remediated back in the day, and it just kind of forced me into the issue. And with my engineering and contracting background, it's kind of like a perfect storm.
Right.
To kind of get into it.
Well, I know that a lot of our listeners who've dealt with it and who were around at the time know what Chinese drywall and the history of it. But could you give us a quick background as to how it was introduced, why people are dealing with this?
Well, it was a product that was imported because of the shortages, and then they were kind of forced to use it, and because of lack of supply.
And that was after the big hurricanes and stuff, right? So much drywall was in demand.
Exactly.
Okay.
In fact, the combination of the building boom overlapping with the hurricanes just created a shortage, and they were kind of being creative, importing it from China.
Right.
And not only was it cheaper, but they could actually get their hands on it. And they're trying to meet these closing deadlines, and the only thing they can do is use this Chinese drywall.
And now the whole reason that the Chinese drywall had the issue, did they ever? I mean, I've read a lot of articles on it, but was there ever a final finding, a result that concluded why the drywall was the way it was?
Well, it's elemental sulfur. It was gypsum is mined out of the ground, There's a couple mines in China that had a sulfur vein running through it.
Okay.
So it's the quality control, it's the process, and then there's a couple schools of thought. Is there sulfur reducing bacteria and the elemental sulfur? And I think it's both. It's a combination of both. And it's that sulfur that's emitting the sulfide gases that react with the copper components that causes a degradation of the metals.
Okay.
And it's also, that's where you get that kind of acrid smell that you can
Sulfur
tell
smell,
Yeah, and my theory is the hydrogen sulfide creates the most of the smell, and there's multiple different sulfide gases, and so there's different makeups and almost cocktails for the types of drywall, because there's a variety. I have a catalog of drywall types. It's over 50 different types that I have.
Oh, wow.
And there's a lot of variety of the Chinese types, and there's some that are really low off gassing, and then there's some that are the really corrosive stuff. And then the kind of a misnomer, when I did a good sampling is I was president of a condo association. That's how that was the other part of how I got into this, because I was kind of forced into it to deal with the issues. We had 80 tainted units. So I was able to, over a 4-day period, go into 135 condo units, determine which ones were bad, and then cataloged which ones had odor, which ones didn't, the types of corrosion, and then the different things we found. Because it's like taking a deck of cards, they had 3 different suppliers, and each supplier had different manufacturers. Okay. So you can just imagine that there's multiple. Some of them are 7 different, like one, in a 2-story townhouse, we had 7 types, 3 Chinese and 4 domestic in one property.
Wow.
So it's like taking a deck of cards and shuffling and shelling it out. And on that one, the odor was only in at that time, and a third of them. So I'm finding that it's about a little over half will actually have an odor, and I think that has to do with the hydrogen sulfide is kind of like the smelliest gas, and so depending on the type of Chinese you have, and the heat, humidity, and how you keep the conditions of the property, all tie into that odor. So that's kind of a misnomer.
Yeah, because I was always
say, "Oh, I don't smell it,"
I was under the impression, I came down after it was all a big deal, but I was told by all the realtors and everyone I worked with that you can absolutely tell. You can tell from the smell. But I actually had a closing fall apart a couple of months ago that the inspector was up in the attic and came down with his camera and it had the picture, and it just said "Made in China" right on the drywall. And we didn't notice any kind of smell throughout the house. The guy that had lived there for years had never noticed anything, but there actually was some corrosion just locally. So we're thinking that maybe they just used a few panels of it or something like that,
Yeah, that's what we're seeing more and more now, and you'll probably see more and more as time goes on, as the market is getting more volatile, where there's more transactions. I've had several cases just in the last few weeks where you're not finding it until they go to sell it. Because then, the good home inspector that knows what he's doing, and there's a lot of bad ones out there. There was a story over on the news about a week ago about a young couple. These things kill me because they poured their savings, bought the house, used a $100 home inspector that, he had some caveat language, but didn't even look for Chinese drywall. And it was in what I call the flood zone of Chinese drywall, that 05, 6, and 7 time frame.
Yeah, where your flag should be up to begin with as an inspector.
Oh yeah,
right?
What kills me is I need to talk to Tom about an entire radio show dedicated to the lack of regulation, because it needs to come from the state level to get to the local jurisdictions on the building departments to get to some regulation on the inspections and the remediation, because it's the Wild West out there, and it's just.
And they don't have that yet for the Chinese drywall inspections?
No.
I know, because I know last time we were talking about a year ago that they were talking about the training and the license requirements and things like that. They still haven't put that in effect.
Well, they finally, 2 years ago, you have to actually have a license or a certification for home inspection.
For home inspection,
They didn't even have that until 2 years ago. And then but now that should dovetail into a special, when any new issue comes up, it should be automatic, part of your continuing education, that you have to get it.
Yeah.
Just like I just had to get my GC license renewed, and I got my PE license coming up. I had 7 hours of requirements. The wind mitigation, certain things are required, laws and rules, in order to renew my license. So why on earth isn't there not something in place for the home
Right.
inspection license,
Well, and
that you
that's-
have to be trained in Chinese drywall.
And that's why whenever I have customers, they want to go with a cut rate inspector. I'm like, you really absolutely get what you pay for when it comes to home inspectors. And I really think you should take someone's advice and go with a quality inspector, even if you're paying a little bit more.
Now, if you have any
Absolutely. That's
issues
the best advice you could do, because it's one of your life's biggest investment. You're going to save a few $100s.
Right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to True Radio, and we have Howard Ursom on the line with us, who is basically, you could say, master of Chinese drywall. Man is actually brilliant and has been involved in the Chinese drywall since pretty much the beginning that it came out. And if you'd like to ask any questions, or maybe you have issues with Chinese drywall, or you know somebody, give us a call here at the studio, 772-220-9788. That's 220-9788. And we got a whole bunch of questions that we're going to be asking and talking to Howard here throughout the show. Now, as it relates to, I guess, the buying and selling of homes, some of the things that you brought up were, the seller side of bad remediation versus the buyer side.
Yeah. So it's a lose-lose, because when you have the lack of regulation on the remediation, so now you're getting a lot of the realtor-contractor combinations that will go in, buy a distressed property that has Chinese drywall, and they'll do the minimal fix. Like, you'll see a bunch of shortcuts. And just in this last 2 weeks, 3 different properties I went into, and I was so moved by one, I had to send it out in a newsletter, where I went in there, took a picture that they actually trimmed the Chinese drywall above the base tile, around the telecom panel, and at the edge of the bullnose, at the shower, and it actually extended into the tile by maybe 5 inches. So now you have all this Chinese drywall, and then I'm trying to get information out. So I started YouTube
Carol's
channel.
head's bobbing up and down.
You dealt with that situation?
Yeah.
And
What happened?
what kills me is that now,
You gotta
so
take
then
it
they
out.
go to throw it on the market. Now, sometimes you'll get, that's one where they knowingly cut corners. Now, the other one is where they don't. They think they're doing the right thing, where they hire a contractor, and then they're relying on the local jurisdiction. You think if you get a permit, so what do? You license insurance on the contractor, you verify to get all the permits, and then you get somebody to check to make sure it's done right, and then you rebuild, and then you go to sell it and realize, well, wait a minute, there's issues.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different dynamics. If you don't clean the corrosion, but you clean the place perfectly, and you go to try and sell it, but you didn't document that the corrosion was still there with a clean property, what's the home inspector going to do for the buyer?
Right.
They're
I see evidence of Chinese drywall.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to. Those are the things that you have to consider during remediation, and then the things need to be addressed. And I've even seen just bad cases where, I went in one property on Sunday, and there was the form filled out by a licensed engineer that just checked off some boxes. Corrosion cleaned, no debris, and there was debris everywhere. Chinese drywall left behind tile, black corrosion everywhere, and that just blew my mind. And so to me, not only do you need the documentation, but you need photographs. You got to prove it. And then so when somebody goes through the remediation, then they go to sell it, and when they thought they were doing everything right, then now they're stuck. And then and on the buyer's side, you could be buying the property, and if you don't, and the ones I hate are the ones that are bad after the fact. And now I'm kind of in there trying to. We did one in Tampa where the house was perfect except 2 receptacles. The copper was completely black, but fortunately the devices looked like they were the original devices, and it's probably like where they had the temporary power running during construction, and they just forgot to go back and do those 2. So we're struggling to find evidence that the place was cleaned and remediated properly, but they didn't have any documentation. So then that just just gets everybody in a sticky situation, because I'm doing my darndest to try and, because the last thing I want is to wreck a sale.
Right.
When you got a seller that wants to sell and a buyer that wants it, and it'll be perfectly happy. But so I need to. So those are tough situations.
You got to do the right thing.
If it was just done right.
It's like I had a house that had a purchase on, and it had already been remediated. When I went into the house, I could still slightly smell the sulfur, even though the remediation had happened. So talk the buyer into having a test done on the house where they totally close up the house and they run the tests in there to find out if there is any of the Chinese drywall still possibly in the house. Well, this house came back with a positive. And it wasn't high, but it was high enough that it probably gave me the indicator that when they tore the drywall out, even in the rat walls, probably the dust from it had not been cleaned out. And again, part of it was behind the shower. As far as I was concerned, I felt it was a very sloppy job of remediating. But those are issues that you find out there right now.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that out there, and it's problematic. It creates a problem for the buyer and seller. And in reality, there is occurring gases outside that, well, some people think, it's not enough to bother you. Well, if it affects the transaction, that doesn't bother me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, but we still don't know what the cause of this, what the after effects of this is all going to come out to. I mean, do we know if it's going to be toxic? We don't know if you're going to get sick from it, or is it going to be toxic.
Well, my dog had a brain tumor from it.
Oh, really?
Remember that one, Howard?
We'll be seeing, like, you see the mesothelioma ads now.
Yeah.
They're going 5 years from now, it'll be the Chinese drywall.
Right.
Although I do have to say, a friend of the show, Elaine, we all know her, has asked us that we really try to encourage the use of defective drywall as opposed to Chinese drywall. She happens to be of Asian descent, and she just thinks that it's a very, a negative connotation, and she always says, no, it's defective drywall. So we do want to be fair out there.
All right.
The technicalities get a little tricky because I don't even like defective, because I was in a deposition the other day,
right?
And defective is excluded in the insurance policy.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, does the drywall? Can you hang a picture on it? Does it divide the room?
Okay.
Does it still function right? Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Meanwhile, I'm saying I don't like defective. First of all, I'm trying to, get an insurance claim out of the thing, and I'm like, well, no, it's reactive, it's corrosive, it's
somebody will come out.
We'll call it gas-emitting drywall, right?
All right, well, we got to go ahead and take our first quick break, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Howard Ursom here on True Radio, 772-220-9788. When we come back, we got Hot Around Town with Carol Morgan, Scott McAllister, George Matter. I'm Tom Platini, your host. We'll be right back.
Customer service and great rates. That's what you get with Atlantic Insurance Advisors. Remember, everyone's just one torrential downpour away from a flood. And with rates as low as $129 per year, why would you not get coverage? Call 772-233-4444 or email flood@atlanticinsurance.us and save hundreds on all your insurance needs. That's 772-233-4444, 233-4444 for Atlantic Insurance Advisors.
Hi, I'm Carol Morgan, real estate consultant with Keller Williams Real Estate in beautiful Stuart, Florida, serving Martin, St. Lucie, and Palm Beach counties, and co-host of Treasure Coast Real Estate Unleashed every Thursday morning on WSTU 1450 at 10 a.m. I have an extensive array of luxury waterfront and single-family homes. If you're looking to buy or sell, please call me at 772-631-1394 or go to StewartHomeListings.com.
Hi, I'm Scott McAllister, General Manager of the McAllister International Team of Keller Williams of the Treasure Coast and co-host of Treasure Coast Real Estate Unleashed every Friday morning on WSTU at 1450 a.m. I have a full real estate team with specialists in buying, selling, land and equestrian properties, distressed homes, and luxury waterfront. Call myself or my team at 561-756-0891 or online at treasurecoasthomesonline.com.
All right, welcome back to True Radio, Treasure Coast Real Estate Unleashed. I'm Tom Platini, your host, with Carol Morgan, Scott McAllister, George Matter, and our guest on the line is Howard Ursom with Chinese Drywall Screening. 90% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. Do you have a struggling business? Well, sometimes it seems like you just can't get ahead. CTL Consultant specializes in helping get small to medium-sized businesses back on track. Now, we'll help you understand how your profit and loss statement, if used properly on a daily basis, can be the most powerful tool you have, and you don't have to be an accountant to understand it. Don't use a profit and loss statement? Well, then you need to call CTL Consultants today at 772-882-5700. That's 772-882-5700 to get your business back on track. So let's go to our topic here, or actually go to our special segment that we have with Hot Around Town. And, since Carol's always the hottest one in the room, let's go with Carol first with Hot Around Town. Then we'll get back to Howard here in just a minute. So what's hot with your team this week?
Oh, my goodness. It's been a busy week, I have to tell you. I've got 4 new listings coming in.
All Chinese drywall free? Or, excuse me. No? Oh, we don't know that yet.
One is in the Oaks in Hobe Sound. It's on the market for $389,900. It's a 4-bedroom pool home. I have a rental coming from Tradition for $1,400 a month. I just listed one on White Horse in in Port St. Lucie. Yeah. So it's been a great week, I have to tell you. It's been busy. It's been busy. I can tell you that the buyers out there are buying like crazy.
They are.
I have not had a night at home this week.
Wow.
It's been nuts. So
that's a good thing.
it is, but I'm tired.
Yeah, you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
It is. So it's been a hot
feeling.
time, and it's just going to get better as the season comes on. Again, one more thing we need out there is any listeners out there that have a house that they want to rent seasonally, a house or a condo, please call us. We have people who are desperately searching for wintertime residences to rent, and there are none.
And what number would they call, Scott?
That number would be 772-444-2590 if you want to speak to either Carol or myself or George when he joins us. Or if you just want to speak to someone in general, just leave us the information and we'll get right back to you. Carol and I are actually, and my team is actually working on rental together. What you've worked at one more than I have. What are the details on that rental?
It's a beautiful home. It's in Osprey Cove. It's in Hobe Sound. It's a pool home. There is dockage there for a boat that you can rent space on. The dock space that's available right now will hold up to a 60-foot boat. The house it's beautiful. It's tiled throughout. Has a pool. It is 4 bedrooms,
Yes.
I believe. It's 4 bedrooms. We've got it right now. It's on the market to rent for $2,800 a month. So if somebody's looking for a beautiful rental, it has water access.
Nice.
Please give us a call.
It is actually it's a gorgeous rental.
Beautiful. So what's hot around town for the McAllister team?
Well, that's the only listing that we've taken this week was that rental. I've been following up with our rainmaker Jane out of town with family. I've been the administrator for everyone, which is going great because she left me 3 deals that she was working on.
Beautiful.
And then Valerie Hathaway, one of our buyer's agents, she has two active deals that are closing this week and next week, and the same with Krasula Trucas. She's working on 2 deals. So, my team's busy, and they're keeping me busy running around, getting all the paperwork. And
Awesome. And the reason that they're so busy, ladies and gentlemen, is because they're being referred by other clients who have just trust and loyalty and value that they have already proven themselves. And that's one of the great things is that if you find other people that have been extremely thrilled to death, then that's got to tell you a lot about it. And if you guys were coming on the show and like, well, I don't have much going, but you guys are so busy because people see the value in what you guys bring to the table.
Yeah, we are busy. Between Jane and I can't tell you how many years of experience we have. But I've been at
she doesn't want to tell you.
How many?
We'll keep that quiet. Well, let's go ahead and go back to Howard on.
Well, I got a question for Howard.
Yeah, Howard.
So, Howard, I had told you about that deal I had that fell through a little bit a while back. So what would my client, what would his options be at this point where he knows there's obviously a piece of drywall that says made in China in there, and the inspector noted that there was some local corrosion. How does he go about getting it tested? I mean, obviously they call a company like yours. What's involved in the testing?
Well, one of the things with the background and going through Promenade, I actually, years ago, I founded the company in 2009, and I kind of had the crystal ball on how this was going to shake out. You're going to get a ton of people with a little bit of Chinese drywall with a class action lawsuit that they're going to get 5 cents on the dollar, and they're going to be stuck. And so what do? They're going to figure out a way. What's the most economical way in that situation to just get rid of the problem. So I basically what I call it geeking out. I geeked out big time on how to be the surgeon that can carve out the tumor and save the leg from getting amputated. So there's
I like that analogy.
That's a good analogy.
Rather than saying, killing the whole
Right.
deal. Doing
exactly.
surgery.
And then so there's actually a lot of real estate opportunities out there, especially if you get in a situation. And some people, actually had a guy threaten me with a screw gun the other day when I told him that he didn't have Chinese drywall. It was the funniest thing ever. I tell him he was desperate to have Chinese drywall because he told the bank that he had Chinese drywall and stopped paying the mortgage, and he was way upside down on the mortgage, and that was his get out of jail free
Short
card,
sale.
was having Chinese drywall. And he was looking at short sale, and they were really friendly with the buyers. So, not to say anything's going on or anything, but so
I smell
when
something.
I told him he didn't have it, he was like revving his screw gun, looking me in the eye and saying, "I really need this to have Chinese drywall."
I've never been threatened by a Makita before.
And I was like, "I'm not sure what you're getting at, but I cannot just, So I told him like, "Well, I'm sorry, you're fine." So,
wow.
But it's, but yeah. So in the real estate deal out there is somebody that's short selling that the price is dropped because it has Chinese drywall, yet you don't have to full gut it. So the full gut in the industry is basically you're gutting out all the drywall down to the shell.
Mm-hmm.
What I've learned through various techniques, it's the visual, it's the corrosion, and then the magic piece of equipment is X-ray fluorescence analyzer. It's been used in multiple industries for testing materials. You can do lead paint testing. It'll tell you, basically it shoots radiation, hits the elements. It takes the electron charge. If anybody remembers back in the day in the periodic table, each element has its own charge.
Mm-hmm.
So it recognizes that charge, takes it in there, computes what that material is, and spits out those elements.
Wow.
Chinese drywall has is a light metal strontium, and it's a naturally occurring element in the ground.
Yeah, strontium's radioactive.
Really high in China. So and then there's other types of drywall that have high strontium that are fine. So you use it and you can actually, and it's funny. I can almost go around the house and tell you, all right, you have national gypsum here, you have American gypsum here, and you have Chinese here, just based on that strontium.
Wow.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's
and
impressive.
it's non-destructive. So I use that in my real estate transactions because I've seen a lot of cases where it's the well water. It'll look just like Chinese drywall. So you'll go in there, you'll see black copper, black ground wires, black coil, and then you'll be like, oh, Chinese drywall, stay away. But all you got to do is add a little water softener.
And is that the sulfur from the water?
Yep, and you'd be amazed. People don't believe it until you actually see it, that well water can actually corrode, and it's actually worse than Chinese drywall. I've seen worse corrosion from well water, from sulfurous well water, than I have from Chinese drywall. And it's amazing how it actually go into the walls.
Oh wow!
Where the gas gets in the house, whether it's from showers or from the dishwasher or whatever it is. It just gets into the house and it just attacks
I can see that because I've taken a shower at a friend's house who had sulfury water, and you're just like I felt like, oh, I don't even feel like I'm getting clean. It was like, this is gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. And then so those are some really good opportunities. So if you happen to see those in your transactions, you may want to buy that yourself, because next thing you know, it's reduced for the stigma and tagging of Chinese drywall, but to getting it fixed and getting it remediated, or just a guy like me to go in there and certify it and to say, no, you're fine, no Chinese drywall, just take care of your water equipment, and then you're good to go.
All you need is a $2,000 carbon filter. Works wonderful.
Now, Howard, is that pretty much the primary way that you're using to find the Chinese drywall?
It's a simple way. The coil is the main thing to look at, but if it's missing, and then you got to look for fraud too.
Right.
The idea of swapping out, and I don't want to say too much because I got to give up my trade secrets on stuff. So I got to be very careful on what I say, because I don't want people, oh, okay, well, that's how I'll trick them.
Yeah.
So, but there's things I look for.
Yeah.
Look for fraud, because I've seen people trying to cover that up in order to get rid of a property that actually has it.
Right.
But when it's only a few sheets, I take a graffiti marker and I'll just scribble on the walls, remove from here to here, And then I take it the next. There's like the assessment period, there's the protocol, and then there's the certification side. It's kind of like a multi-step process where I can go in there. And then the ultimate goal is to 100% source removal down to the dust particle. Because you'd be amazed on like those houses that we were looking at that left a little bit behind the tile, how much that will corrode.
Yep.
I deconstructed one house property to try and find where the builder did it that way, and they kept having continued corrosion problems. The ground wires were turning black. They were having some funky, weird, odor issues that were intermittent, and then the coils were turning dark. It was just creating lots of problems, and they just couldn't figure anything out. So then it was like a seek and destroy, where you just had to try and figure out where the problems are. And that one property, I gained the whole lifetime's worth of knowledge on how to deal with those issues, because you figure out where to hone in on, and we had to basically remove all 2 feet of drywall around the whole place. And then you'd be amazed, the copper line that ran horizontally above the furring, it had little black spots everywhere there was a crumb of Chinese drywall.
Wow.
At the base, underneath the furring at the base of the wall. And it was just complete correlation with the debris from lack of cleaning and the corrosion.
So it's not just cutting it out, it's really doing a good job cleaning up afterwards, vacuum everything out, getting it all.
Yeah, the crumbs will do more harm than the drywall. If the drywall's got paper and paint and sealed on both sides, and
it's not as reactive
and undisturbed, it'll off-gas, but not as much. If you crumble that up, and now it's raw exposed gypsum that has almost 360 degrees of surface area, that's much worse. So now you're almost creating a bigger problem by leaving all the crumbs in there than you did if you did the Chinese drywall there.
Now, Howard, if somebody wants to contact you to find out, maybe have you come out and do an inspection for them, how would they contact you?
Toll free, 855-CDW-HELP. I can never remember what those numbers are.
It's 239-4357. I just did that right off the top of my head, Howard.
You're right.
Yeah.
And then my website, which is ChineseDrywallScreening.com.
Perfect.
And then actually just Google if you Google my first and last name with Chinese drywall on it, you'll get an insane amount of hits, like 300 pages or something like that.
Oh my gosh! And the last name is spelled EHRSAM.
Yep.
And then Howard, but yeah, he's all over. He's on YouTube, CDW Screening. He's got YouTube videos. So I tell you, if you've had an issue, know somebody that has an issue, you really need to send them this way. But so these are the kind of people that we work with here on True Radio. Carol Morgan, Scott McAllister. Little things like this help them to be a better representation for you, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why they separate themselves from other people, other realtors out there.
Howard, could you give us an idea of what kind of a cost somebody, if they were suspected of Chinese drywall in a house, what kind of a cost factor are they looking for?
Cost as in to remediate, or cost like my fees, or what?
Testing,
to test it, for testing, to see if truly. I mean, I think I know that remediation probably runs somewhere between $35,000 and $45,000 to remediate a house.
Probably on a typical house, a smaller house, that kind of thing. It varies. I usually sometimes I'll do that $35 to $45 a square foot, based on the house square footage.
Right.
For remediation, full gut.
But how about for
there's
testing?
There's a lot of variations of that out there. If you're going to leave the wiring in, that's a whole other conversation.
Right. Well, I don't think you want to do that. So.
No, we'll table that for another day.
Right.
But my fees vary based on the complexity of the project. It'll start from maybe $700, then go up from there depending on the size and conditions of the property.
I mean, it's a very good investment if somebody's suspected of a house that has Chinese drywall and you're considering to buy it, to come in to have you test it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll actually provide like a tech support hotline for home inspectors. And I'm very generous with my time and helping people. I only want to get involved if you need me. I don't need to go out there and tell you something you don't need. Most home inspectors should be able to recognize a coil, that if a coil is the right conditions, meaning it's like the original coil, there's no signs it's been replaced, dates, serial numbers match up, all these different things, all the stars and moons line up, then you can pretty much clear a house just on the coil. If it's been replaced, if it's an aluminum coil, if it's coated, if it looks like some numbers don't match up, if there's some funky issues going on, then that's thrown out, and then you're kind of
There's your red flags.
you have to take it to the next step.
You know, I think what's funny out there when you're suspected of Chinese drywall. I know when I've walked in a house and I've been suspected of it because I can smell just a certain amount of it. But you go around and you start looking at the pipes and the corrosion that might be on like on the faucets or on the pipes underneath it or in the electrical, and you see it's all been changed. It's
Red
like somebody's
flags.
it's a big red flag for me that somebody is just trying to hide something.
Yep, and I look for those scrub marks too.
Yep.
If, I've seen it like, oh, the copper looks fine. You look a little close.
Yeah.
Scrub marks.
Sanded off.
Yeah.
This is 8-year-old copper, and it's nice and
Yeah,
shiny and clean. Like, wow.
You know, the funny thing, one of the houses that just not too long ago that I did, that I was suspected of and had a buyer going in to look at it, they left the old copper laying in the sink because they hadn't removed it yet with some new copper pieces that were still sitting up there. And I was like, how stupid are you?
Whoopsie.
Yeah. Oops.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and take another quick break, and we'll come back. We're going to talk more with Howard. Howard's got a house, 1953, that had some Chinese drywall. Let's find out about how that happened. You're listening to True Radio. Carol Morgan, Scott McAllister. I'm Tom Platini, your host, with Howard Ursum on the line with us from Chinese Drywall Screening. We will be right back.
Hi, I'm Carol Morgan, real estate consultant with Keller Williams Real Estate in beautiful Stuart, Florida, serving Martin, St. Lucie, and Palm Beach counties, and co-host of Treasure Coast Real Estate Unleashed every Thursday morning on WSTU 1450 at 10 a.m. I have an extensive array of luxury waterfront and single-family homes. If you're looking to buy or sell, please call me at 772-631-1394 or go to StewartHomeListings.com.
Customer service and great rates. That's what you get with Atlantic Insurance Advisors. Remember, everyone's just one torrential downpour away from a flood. And with rates as low as $129 per year, why would you not get coverage? Call 772-233-4444 or email flood@atlanticinsurance.us and save hundreds on all your insurance needs. That's 772-233-4444, 233-4444 for Atlantic Insurance Advisors.
Hi, I'm Scott McAllister, General Manager of the McAllister International Team of Keller Williams of the Treasure Coast and co-host of Treasure Coast Real Estate Unleashed every Friday morning on WSTU at 1450 a.m. I have a full real estate team with specialists in buying, selling, land and equestrian properties, distressed homes, and luxury waterfront. Call myself or my team at 561-756-0891 or online at treasurecoasthomesonline.com.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jupiter, and Indiantown, Martin County's Heritage Station.
All right, welcome back to Treasure Coast Real Estate Unleashed. I'm Tom Platini, your host. Carol Morgan, Scott McAllister. George Matter is going to be joining us next week, our new master realtor.
I'm really excited to be getting another perspective,
Yeah.
you know.
But I'm really upset with him because he didn't bring us back any lobster.
Well, he's not back yet.
Oh, he has been back. He was back.
Oh, but you said he left again. Yeah, well, maybe that's what it was.
He went to go
back
get your lobster.
to get the
Yeah,
lobster
right.
for you.
I doubt it.
Well, my mom's up in Boston, so we should expect some, Maine lobster from up there.
That would be nice.
That could be our show when she comes back. We can just put the video camera on,
Us-
4 of us
us
Sitting here eating our lobster. Great.
Well, 5 of us. Of course, we would
Yeah,
make sure we
Mike.
took care of Mike behind. Yeah, absolutely. So on the line, we have Howard Ursum here joining us with Chinese Drywall Screening, and he's talking to us about, well, how you folks can protect yourselves. If you had it, if you know somebody that has it. I know it's a big issue out there, and there's tons of people. Give us a call here at the show, 772-220-9788. Or you can contact Howard directly at 855-239-4357, and that's 855-CDW-HELP, Chinese Drywall Help, 239-4357. But, if you folks want to contact any of the realtors on the show to find out more about how they can help you to find the right home and maybe guide you in the right direction to find one that does not have this tainted version to it. What's that number, Scott?
That would be 772-444-2590.
Get you directly to the realtors. You can leave a message if there's somebody particular. Maybe you watch us online on TREUradio.com and you just love the way Scott looks and you just want to.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, I didn't want to say that because I figured I might sound a little,
My mom told me I'm handsome. Okay.
Yeah, my mom told me that too, but look at me.
I got another question for you, Howard. If somebody, I know you mentioned your website. What was it? Was it ChineseDrywallScreening.com? Was that it?
Correct.
Okay. If someone just wants to educate themselves about a little bit more about drywall, Chinese drywall, is there information on there about that? Or someone could look up and find out information?
Yeah. There's a ton of information. I've got a lot of compliments on it, and I've tried to put photographs on there. For a while, it was a major campaign, just educate, because there was so much false information out there. There's so many, and what I don't want to see is a home inspector missing it.
Right.
Because that's just bad for everybody. Bad for them, bad for buyer, bad for seller. Well, maybe it's good for the seller. But so
it's bad for the market, though.
Yeah, bad for the market.
And actually, I even created a training program with Nachi. I flew out to Boulder and filmed the whole training program to try and even help that along.
Nice, and that's ChineseDrywallScreening.com, right?
Yeah. Yep.
ChineseDrywallScreening.com. Now, you sent this over to me this morning. That this happened yesterday. A house, 1953. Never in a million years would I think that a house, 1953. Oh, well, it wasn't happening.
Explain. Built in 1953.
Yeah, built in 1953. However, there was some remodeling done, but the remodeling was done in 2001. You say?
Yep, it was a house on the water. I don't want to get too descriptive on where the details of the house, just to protect the owner.
Oh, absolutely.
So we'll keep it very generic. But it's it was a house in 1953. It had the old walls, plaster walls, back in the day where didn't have drywall, and then what they did is in '01 they did a renovation. So they enclosed the carport, made it into a room, and then moved some walls around and resurfaced some of the walls, and then did all that with drywall. Unfortunately, it was all Chinese drywall. And there's one type in '01 and '02 on the claim. Like if somebody wanted to go to the multi-district litigation lawsuit, they have an index of drywall. It's like number 18 and 19 on that list. They're still trying to figure out who actually made it. It's funny that they don't know. And then if anybody has that type, this is important to know. There is an active open claim for that type. It's a supplier that came out of Jacksonville. So they're actually going to look into it because there's a chance they might be able to, if they're on an address list that was supplied by that supplier in Jacksonville, they could participate in this lawsuit. So there's a lot of different dynamics at play there. But yeah, so what I did, and it was last night. I think I was there till like 8 o'clock, and I ended up mapping it out. So, and I was able to kind of, I'll do this. I'll charge for one service, and then I'll go ahead and do more while I'm there. So I went ahead and marked it for. And the contractor was there, so I was able to coordinate with him on what needed to be removed. And I was able to check the ceilings, so he knew he didn't have to replace the ceilings. But it had a combination of tongue and groove ceilings, tongue and groove wall paneling, plaster walls, and then drywall walls.
Oh, wow.
And then, but it's common where I'll see closets. The closet ceilings will have Chinese drywall because it's a small ceiling. They'll just throw half-inch in there because it's a scrap piece left over from somewhere. And then the bulk of the areas, the ceilings were just 5/8 because it was low strontium plus if you spot check the labels that had the fire label. There's no bad Chinese 5/8. There is Chinese 5/8 that's fire rated, and it's Beijing New Building Materials. So, but anything with the word Beijing on it of the Chinese variety has been non-corrosive from what I've seen.
So when if someone happens to be in their attic and they just see on a corner of something that says made in China, it doesn't necessarily mean they have defective drywall.
Correct.
Okay.
You were so politically correct about that.
Well, that's good to know because these home inspectors, when they do see that, they say that you've got Chinese drywall up there, and that sets off a bad connotation of really it may not be bad, but people think it is.
Right.
And so how that is addressed.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Now, if it's something like, if someone's concerned about a particular piece, or do you have to do the whole house tenting to test that, or can you just test that particular wall?
There's different things. I do have I'm working on a patent on my environmental corrosion test. Then I'll do that if I'm testing the air. That's a complicated process, but I've kind of got that in certain situations. The XRF allows me to actually analyze the drywall itself, and that's what I'll use to see which boards are bad and which ones are good. And once we determine that, then it kind of morphs into what's the protocol going to be, and you don't just carve out just to the edges of Chinese. You want to go a little bit further and then do what makes sense. If the upper piece is Chinese, we need to take care of the lower piece because it's just going to fall down in the bottom track. You need to be able to pull the bottom in order to clean it. Right. So there's a lot of, if this, then that type of scenarios depending on where it is and how it is.
All right.
Interesting.
And if you'd like to find out about any more information, Chinese Drywall.
Okay.
Chinese Drywall.
Can we get a new host, please?
Yeah, pull those marbles out of my mouth. ChineseDrywallScreening.com. You'll find all the information Howard's talking about. And you can also give him a call, 855-CDW-HELP. That's 855-239-4357.
Thank you very much for all the information. I've definitely learned some new things and things that I'm going to want to speak to inspectors, especially when I'm using when it's someone else's inspector that I'm not sure of their qualifications. I have some questions to definitely pose to them.
Yeah, and I mean, Howard, I'm sure you working with the home inspector with the realtor as well to kind of make sure that everybody is following the right procedures, and at the end, after the house is finalized, that we don't end up finding out, oops, somebody made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And the good ones out there, they'll know what to recognize, and then they'll bring me in as necessary.
Beautiful.
When it's not necessary, nope, but they know when to flag it. It's kind of like seeing evidence of mold or termite damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Flag it, bring in the expert.
Perfect. Well, Howard, we're definitely going to have you back on the show again because there's a lot of information we didn't even scratch the surface. But I want to thank you very much for participating and being a part. And I hope that you and I we can do some more topics and more shows in the future.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Awesome. Howard, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank
Howard
you.
Urson,
Thanks,
ladies and
Howard.
gentlemen. ChineseDrywallScreening.com. Don't forget to go there, find out all kinds of information. So great topic. I mean, and that's you guys come across that a lot still, don't you?
Not as much as we did, but it's still out there.
It's still out there.
You definitely need to. It's something you need to
be
know
aware
about.
of. You need to know.
Yeah, definitely need to know. So, so now Foxwood. Talk to me about the Foxwood. How's that going?
Good. I mean, it's good. We would like to have some buyers come in out of Foxwood.
Okay.
I'm going to get ready to probably have a broker open for the agents to go in probably next week to tour the home. We haven't done that because it's summertime. It seems like a lot of the agents just aren't working in the summer. They're out with their kids and doing everything else. So everybody's back to work again now, so I think I'm going to do an open house out there.
Nice.
I can't say enough about it. I was out there, and there's absolutely gorgeous property.
It is a gorgeous piece.
You need to see it.
Somebody
to understand.
who wants to live that country living, it is.
And if you like wood and all that, and just mature growth,
it's beautiful. It's a beautiful community.
Absolutely gorgeous community.
Something I want to mention, I've been seeing a lot of homes get renovated recently. In fact, I just went and visited a home that was 5,700 square foot down in Palm Beach County off of PGA out in Lost Tree Village.
Mm-hmm.
And they made some renovations, and they're changing the windows in the entire home. The original house had 12.5 tons of air conditioning, 5 systems. Well, when the builders sent this over to me, they were only adding 700 square foot to the home. Not a lot. So we figure, okay, let's just see if we need to add a little air conditioning to the 700 square foot. Well, the builder not realizing that because they're replacing all the windows and they're upgrading them, that the load on the house is actually dramatically reducing. Well, I went out to the home and then did a whole evaluation. The house now, with the renovation and all the new windows, only needed 8.5 tons of air conditioning.
It's a big drop.
4 tons left, and all they were going to do. And now I see this a lot. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're buying a home, you're thinking about renovating, you're going through a realtor, these are some things that you really need to look into, because 80% of homes to begin with are oversized in South Florida. So having this to take into consideration is something you really need to check with your realtor, and the realtors need to, have that information in their head that, okay, I'm going to buy this home and make a renovation. Well, what are you thinking about doing? Well, the windows are the absolute number one load on the house. The roof is the second. So that taking that into consideration, if they're going to replace those windows, making that recommendation that you really need to get with your builder and your air conditioning company and reevaluate the size of the home, because you'll end up with mold. And if the house for some reason did have Chinese drywall that we didn't know about, let's say, based on what Howard was saying, if you're increasing the humidity in the home, you're going to exacerbate that problem because you're increasing the humidity, and the humidity actually festers the Chinese drywall. So I've seen a lot of that lately, so keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen.
Real quickly, right before we leave, I did want to bring up, I mentioned it last week, we still have that lease, 5 acres property.
Oh,
so
yes.
It's only a 1,000 square foot home, small, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. But if you're, if that size fits you and you've got horses, animals, there's no HOA, so you could have an entire flock of animals. It's $1,400 a month, so 772-444-2590.
Awesome. Well, another great show, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Carol Morgan, Scott McAllister, and I don't know if I want to thank George Matters because he's still on vacation right now, but we'll thank him when he comes to the show next Friday.
With lobster.
With lobster. So thanks again for listening. We appreciate Howard Urson being on the show. And as always, we end our show with a Zig Ziglar quote of the day. The chief cause of failure and unhappiness is trading what you want most for what you want now. Boy, is that key. That is key. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Treasure Coast Real Estate Unleashed. Don't forget, TREUradio.com. You can go online. If you missed any part of the show, you can watch it again. You can get phone numbers. You can listen. You can call Howard if you'd like. Make sure you call the realtors. Contact them directly, 772-444-2590. But all kinds of great information. We will see you back here next Friday. Have a great, what's it, Labor Day?
Labor Day weekend.
Have a great Labor Day
Have a good
weekend.
holiday.
Stay safe. See you next Friday.